I'm Adam and this is AdamDIY. In this video, I'm going to show you how to make your very own mini skate ramp. This is a very easy ramp to build. It's great for first-time skaters as well as more experienced ones. It's portable, so we're going to be able to take it out of the basement, use it outside, bring it back in here for the winter. So you actually can make 2 of these if you want. Have a mini half pipe, which is a lot of fun, but right now we're just going to build a quarter. The deck will be able to detach and fit inside, so if you're going to leave it in the garage corner, it's not going to take up that much room. So here's a quick look at some of the tools you'll need to build this ramp. And this is actually my final sponsored video by Lowe's, and I gotta say, as a sponsor, they've been awesome. I can't say enough good things about them. They've been great to work with, and they've provided these cobalt tools for us to use in this video. I included the links to these products in the video description. If you want to buy these, please click on the links. It'll take you to their website. Reciprocating saw you can use to cut out transitions, but this is more helpful for like if you want to modify the ramp later. Sometimes people build ramps or half pipes that are just too high and maybe the kids are scared to use them or something like that. So they want to cut it down a little bit. This is really great for something like that. This impact driver is great for screws and bolts. The drill will do screws and things like that, but it's better for just using drill bits. So at minimum, you will need a drill and a jigsaw, minimum. And actually you can build a whole ramp with just these 2 tools. But if you want to get this kit and get the other tools included, you'll save some money by buying these all together. Okay, we're going to start with this 1/2-inch sheet of plywood, and you can get nice grade, you can get cheap, which is what this one is. This is just sheathing. I'll put the links to all the materials in the video description, so if you want more details on this, you can get that all through the links. Okay, so I won't go into the details on every piece of materials. So this is for the transitions in deck, the 1/2-inch sheet. This is what, 3/8, and this is for the first layer that goes on the ramp that you're going to be riding on. This is a riding surface. And this will be the riding surface, the final surface you actually skate on that your wheels are going to touch. This is underneath that to give it some support. This is 4 foot here, 4 foot here. That's halfway across the sheet. I'm going to snap a chalk line. Good tool if you have one. We'll put a straight line that way. And we'll do another chalk line, 2 feet. There we go. We're going to draw the transitions, cut them out of this section here. Up from the bottom, 23 inches. And again, I'll put the measurements and some more information in the video description, so don't worry too much if I skip some of that. So about 6 inches in. And that's where it'll start going down right there. I've already figured out how far to come this way. It's 53 inches. Okay. So, and I need to make this a perpendicular line from the base. So I'm going to make another mark here, 53 inches. So from the base of the plywood, I have my 2 marks so I can make sure that this isn't crooked. I'm lining up with my 2 marks. I'm going to come up to right here, which is 5 foot. I'll put a little X on the ground. And if, again, you're doing this in grass, you can just push a screwdriver or something into the dirt and tie your string on that. But because I'm down here by myself and this is concrete, I'm just going to weigh this string down on my mark. So that's going to pivot on the axis of 5 feet right there. Keep some tension on the string. It's snagged on the plywood there, so we'll correct that. There we go. And it comes right up there and meets with our first mark. That's it. Not too difficult, and it's a nice, perfect, smooth curve. As a kid, we used to just eyeball it. The last board that we're going to nail on the ramp is going to be able to fit this 2x4 right there. So if I place this, I can see exactly how far I can put the last one. So I'll put a little mark there, like that. This will make more sense later. So the bottom final board will be right here. All this is just kind of extra. And the plywood, when we lay it on, is not going to follow this curve. It's just going to want to go straight. So it'll probably straighten out to like that. So none of this matters. I can just cut all that off. So the blade needs some clearance. We're going to lift this up off the ground. So I'll shove some 2x4s underneath it. And funny story, I'm sure a lot of people have the same one if they built ramps as a kid. We're building a half pipe, and instead of lifting it off the ground with 2x4s, like you see me doing here, my friend used his skateboard to lift it up off the ground while he cut. It was halfway through before he noticed that he cut a skateboard in half. All right. So I want to show you this feature. If you're like me and it's been a while since you've upgraded your jigsaw, you can insert it like that and it's installed. Look how easy that is. And to take it out, that fast. Isn't that awesome? This thing has other features like a blower, so it'll blow away the sawdust while you're cutting. But isn't that great? So much better than the Allen wrenches. And take the transition you just made, flip it over, and use it as a template. Now the deck is going to be 2 feet deep. If you need to make it shorter, you can, but we'll just cut out this half here. And then that's the deck. So on the side of this transition, I mapped out where all the 2x4s are going to go. This one and this one will dictate how far the coping sticks out. So this little piece of paper, what I cut out so I could get the right distance for when I add the plywood. So if this is lower, the coping is going to sink in more. The same with this. If this is further back, this 2x4 here, it's going to go sink into that pocket. So play around with that depending on the size of coping that you have. Make sure it's exactly where you want it. This is a 5-inch gap, 5-inch gap, 5-inch gap, 5-inch gap. And then this last one right here is turned horizontally, and the bottom corner is touching the ground. So you just push it all the way as far back this way as you can so that you have as much support as possible before the plywood is going to meet the ground. Now we're going to transfer those markings to the other transition. And that way you'll know exactly where to put them. So I'm cutting out 7 2x4s, 46 inches long each. They're going to be placed in between the transitions. When you're buying 2x4s, make sure that there's no big knots right in the middle. A lot of these, if you're landing on it underneath like that and you have a large knot hole, it's just going to crack when you jump on it. So make sure you get straight boards. You look down the edge of them. Make sure you don't see a big curve and no big knots. Other than that, you should be good. Next up, we're attaching these boards to the transitions using 2 wood screws per end. You can hear that almost jackhammer type noise that it makes, and that's how the impact driver is so efficient. It applies that much kind of hammering force as it turns the screw, and you can adjust how much pressure it's going to add. By the way, only use screws for the whole ramp. Do not use any nails. I got the scars that helped teach me that lesson. It's easier if you do a few pilot holes through the plywood. That way the 2x4s won't move when you're trying to attach them. This is flush here and it's flush with the ground. It's as far down as it can go. Next up, we are cutting the plywood. This is a 3/8 inch sheet of plywood. I'm going to cut it right in half. That'll make a 4-foot square. Okay, the reason why we cut these to 46 inches and the plywood that goes on is 48 inches is we're allowing for this 1/2 inch piece of plywood, so that's going to take up one of the inches. Plus I want a bit of wiggle room for the plywood, so I'm going to leave it hanging over about a 1/2 inch on each side. And you'll notice the plywood has a grain going this way, and that's the same on the other side. The sheet, there's 3 layers to here. The one in the middle of the grain is going this way. So when you lay it on your ramp, make sure the grain is going this way. It'll be easier to bend. You want it to come down and just meet the concrete, just barely touch it. If it goes too far, it'll start lifting up the bottom, so when you're on the ramp, it'll be springy, and you don't want that. So let's line it up. If you have a friend here, they can stand on it for you and keep it from sliding around. All right, that looks good. And what'll happen is, if you don't have enough screws in, it'll just rip them right out. Let's do another one. You don't have to do too many because you also have to put them on the second layer as well. You can see the difference in this plywood. This is 3/8 inch, and this is a 1/4 inch. They've applied a better grade. There's not as many knot holes on this top layer. And where there are knot holes, you see those little wafers that they filled in like this. But this is a nicer surface layer to write on, definitely, than the one underneath. So this is not my first choice. First choice would be masonite for a ramp like this, because it won't be left outside. Masonite's getting really hard to find. Sometimes they call it hardboard. And if you can find it, great, but this is a nice substitute if you can't find any of that. These are the screws I'm using. They're a little bit longer than the last ones because they have to go through 2 pieces of plywood. Also, they're coated, so if they get wet, they're not going to leave those black streaks that regular screws will, uncoated ones. And this one should be a little bit easier to put on. It's thinner, so it's not going to kick back as much. You can see it bends easy. Just want to make sure it hits the ground. I'm going to countersink the heads. I have this bit here. There you go. You can see it's countersink, and that will cut in a tiny divot that the screw head can go in. I'm putting in 4 screws per 2x4, one 3 inches in from the end, and then the next 2 are going to be 14 inches apart. So you have a 2x4 right here, and you see this one here. There's this little corner we're going to cut out. Now you can use the jigsaw for that, but because we have this tool, it's a little bit easier to handle something like this. We're going to cut along the top edge of this 2x4 here and take off the excess plywood. I'm going to do this in 2 passes. One to get off the majority of it, and the second one I'm going to take my time and do a nice clean cut. There we go. All right, next we get to put on the coping, and that's this pipe here. You can use whatever you want. Sprinkler pipe will work, the 1.5 inch thick white PVC sprinkler pipe. This is gray PVC Conduit. It's in the electrical department, and you can also do metal, use metal, which is what most people prefer. Because this is in the basement and I don't want this to make much noise, this is quieter than having a metal pipe, so I'm using this. If you want metal, you can get that also at Lowe's. You could just go to the fence section and you'll see pipes there. Lots of options just in Lowe's itself. Okay, when attaching the coping, you can just put a screw at an angle through there, and then one on the other side, and then maybe one here and one here. But the problem with screws here is then you got holes, and nobody likes holes. Rather than that, and trying to work around the holes, I'm using this construction adhesive. Put the logo at the bottom so we don't see it. All right, that's it, it's in. Now we need to make a deck, and this is the piece of wood that we cut out earlier. It's going to go on just like that. We're going to make this rectangle support frame. I've already cut these out. This is 46 inches. It's the same width as the inside of there. So 2 of those, and these are 17 inches. So we're just going to screw these together. And then the height of these legs is still 23 inches. It's going to be just as high as that. So 1, 2, 3 of those, and we should be good. Screwing in the ends of these, it's prone to splitting, so I'm going to definitely do pilot holes on these. There we go. That's going to go right in like that. I put in a temporary screw right here on the other side just to hold it while we put it together. Done. So let me take out those temporary screws and show you what we can do with this deck. So when you want to put this away, store it, whatever, You take out, like when you're using it, you throw in a few screws up here, right? You take those out when you're done. And if you're gonna put it away in the corner of your garage or something, this can go in here like that. And it's super compact. It doesn't take up much room. You stand it up on the end, up in the corner of your garage, and it's good. All right, and there it is. What do you guys think? Any questions? Should we haul this out and give it a shot? You can see how far the coping sticks out. It's not that much, but it is enough to give your board a little bit of a pop when you come up to the top. If you wanted to take a look at other ramp surfaces, this was the most common one that I used. This is hardboard or masonite, sometimes called. And instead of the second layer of plywood, you would put this on. Problem with this is just pressed wood fibers, and as soon as this gets wet, if it's an outside ramp, it's going to swell up and warp, and you'll have to replace it. So it's kind of garbage for outside, especially if you don't cover it. It's a nightmare. These are nice. They're just more expensive. You can pick a different color. There's black, dark brown, and lighter brown. And then this plastic goes underneath. So it goes on just like that. You don't use any plywood. Very durable, but very expensive. That's from Ramp Armor. They sell that. This is a Canadian company, and they make this recycled plastic material. It comes in 4x8 sheets as well. So there are alternatives, but we'd probably just go with a plywood on a ramp like this. All right, we are done with this ramp. Now, the last thing I have to do is give it a try. I know you're gonna wanna see somebody write it. It's been years since I've been on one. I used to build these all the time as a teenager, had blast. Again, big thanks to Lowe's if you want to use some of these tools. I love this jigsaw, it's so much better. If you want to pick some up yourself, the links are in the description, and thanks for your support, Lowe's, and all you've done for this channel. Also, links to all these materials are in the description, more information on blueprints and measurements, stuff like that. So if you want to build one yourself, be sure to check that out. All the resources are in there. And that's going to do it for this one. I will see you guys next time. Take care and have an awesome day.